It is a first down. Pirates.
You can paint this one purple. What an incredible win by the ECU Pirates.
Welcome into Blackbeard's Alley, a pirate football podcast. We appreciate everyone tuning in whenever and however you're watching or listening. Be sure to like, follow, comment, and subscribe. We're getting you ready for East Carolina and FAU, the regular season finale down in Boca. A noon kickoff on Saturday afternoon on ESPN Plus. The Pirates currently a 6.5-point favorite, and over/under in this one, pushing 70, and that's not surprising with the types of offenses that are possessed by these two teams. And right now, joining Jason and I, we have the play-by-play voice of FAU, and that is Ken LaVicka. Ken, we appreciate your time.
Well, but Jason, thanks for having me. And not that I'm interested in those sorts of betting things, but take the over.
I agree. I think that's definitely the way I lean. Honestly, thought it may be over 70, but especially after that game that you guys had with UConn last weekend, 48-45. But it's always great to be talking football, especially around Thanksgiving, as we're coming to you here on Thanksgiving Eve, if you will. But yeah, let's just start with Zach Kittley. Zach Kittley coming over. He'd been offensive coordinator for Texas Tech. Such a high-flying offense, and he's definitely brought that to Boca.
Yeah, he definitely has. And FAU actually got a taste of Zach Kittley back in 2021 when he was the offensive coordinator at Western Kentucky, and it did not go well for FAU in that game in Bowling Green. It was the Bailey Zappi season, and then it was Bailey Zappi and Zach Kittley and Western Kentucky who came down and won the Boca Raton Bowl that season as well. So Zach Kittley coming to FAU was certainly not his first foray in Boca, but this is a guy who is really young, as evidenced by the fact he's the youngest FBS coach in the entire sport. He also notably is the first FAU football or FAU basketball coach that's ever been younger than me in my 20 years at FAU. So that's taken some time to get used to, and I've really had to come to terms with age at that point. But he's also remarkably aggressive. I mean, you guys saw last week, and it was all over the college football highlight reels. Third quarter, down 3, own 10, going for it on 4th and 1, 90-yard touchdown. Now, I'm not saying that he's done that at any point this season, but there's a reason FAU has more 4th down attempts than any team in the country, and it's because Zach Kittley, not that he doesn't believe in punting, but he prefer not to do it. And if he's in a certain point of the field or he is at a certain distance, he's definitely going to go for it. That's been fun. There's obviously a lot of risk that goes with that, but what I will say is it's been few and far between that you point to an aggressive decision from Zach Kittley and you say to yourself, oh, that's a big reason why FAU has only 4 wins at this point of the season. He is much like the offense you guys have at East Carolina. It's a quarterback and a receiver's dream to play in an offense like that.
And Jason, very quickly, I wanted to follow up on what Ken was saying about Coach Kittley being the youngest FBS coach. I think he's also the tallest. What's he, 6'8"?
He's 6'7", pushing 6'8", yeah.
And because I had the opportunity to go to American Conference Media Days, just being 30 minutes up the road from Charlotte, and you have Coach Kittley at 6'7", and then Blake Harrell's probably, not picking on Coach Harrell here, but I think he's probably the shortest FBS coach. So just some interesting things about this weekend's matchup.
Yeah, so it's funny too. I mentioned the fact that he's the youngest, and he's the tallest. I have to be one of the shortest FBS play-by-play broadcasters. I'm 5'7", but I'm more probably like 5'6", and I've been teased that I look like his just post-pubescent son at this point when we're together. So that's how things are going in Boca. But yeah, he's a fascinating guy, and he played basketball. He was receiving Division I college basketball offers and he loved the sport. He gravitated to the sport. He wanted to be around it. He was enveloped in the entire thing at Texas Tech, that Cliff Kingsbury sort of lineage, and never left it. And now at age 34, he has his first FBS coaching opportunity.
Well, definitely we can understand how exciting the Texas Tech coaching tree can be with our time with Ruffin McNeil and Lincoln Riley, and now having John David Baker and out of that same lineage. And speaking on behalf of Pirate Nation, I'm just going to be transparent and honest. This game scares the hell out of us because of that. We know that the fireworks will be from day. There's not a grand finale. The grand finale starts on the first play and goes all the way through. They just keep shooting. And, coming off the loss we have, it's going to be interesting to see how we rebound. But looking at the offensive numbers your team's putting up and his ability to have the courage to do what a lot of football coaches will not do and take chances, that really affects how our DC, Josh Aldridge, and our staff can call the game, because it's like the service academies. It sounds like Coach Kittley plays with 4 downs and not 3.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That changes
Absolutely.
The dynamics of the game.
For sure. Anywhere on the field, most situations, you're right, it's going to be a 4-down situation. Think about, though, Jason, just what you were talking about this game and thoughts going in an alternate 60-minute universe. This could have been East Carolina playing for a share of the conference championship and FAU playing for bowl eligibility. That nearly happened, which would have raised the stakes that much higher. But one thing I can assure you is that this is going to be a significantly more competitive game than it was in Greenville a year ago when Florida Atlantic went in there on a Thursday night and just got blasted. It was a disaster. And that actually was the beginning of the ball rolling for Tom Herman to ultimately be dismissed as the head coach of the program. But this offense is the thing about the air raid, and you guys know, and you've been around that Texas Tech mindset with how this offense is run. It's not all deep balls all the time. It's not all hit you over the top. It's not all post routes. When this FAU offense is maximizing what it can be in the pass game, it's intermediate underneath routes, and then you run forever after the catch. I mean, Easton Messer had the top pass catcher right now, receptions per game in the country. He's the epitome of that. Run underneath, make the catch, break a tackle, and get moving. The problem with FAU this year, and what I'm sure Coach Harrell and the East Carolina defensive coaching staff have looked at, is Florida Atlantic has not had enough backfield presence, has not had enough of a running game to really unlock to its full capacity what the pass game can be. Because FAU has been unable to churn out yardage on the ground, the linebackers are able to cheat back. They don't have to account for what's happening to the line of scrimmage, and I think that has held FAU's passing offense back, if you can believe it, for a team that has been between 1 and 2 in the country in passing yards over the last month or so. But it also is a reason why the interceptions, I think, for Caden Veltkamp have stacked throughout the course of the year, because, again, linebackers can take chances because there hasn't been a ton of respect for what's coming to them in the ground game. You'll see that, I'm sure, on Saturday. FAU's overcome it because Caden Veltkamp is elite, and Zach Kittley has that offense really sort of customized for Caden Veltkamp. But this whole season for FAU has been what could have been if you could have had any semblance of a consistent running game.
Yeah, along those lines of the short passing game, that was something that really plagued the Pirates in that blowout loss at UTSA last weekend. The screens and the quick play action passes in the flats and so forth, and not so much the shallow crossers, but as Jason mentioned, from that Ruffin McNeil era, where I can see Lance Lewis time and again running those shallow crossers till the cows came home, going back 10 years. But that's something that you're going to get a heavy dose of, and the Pirates are really going to have to do an excellent job of tackling, which they have this season outside of the UTSA game.
Yeah, listen, East Carolina was in a very similar situation a calendar year ago to FAU. The program undergoes a change at the top, and you've got an interim that's trying to make sure that things stay stable and things start to click near the end of the year. You have the famous bowl win, and the rest is history. A year later, East Carolina, late into the year, into a Week 11, is competing for a conference championship. FAU has not been able to emulate that. I would also argue that the stability of FAU's program was not really close to where East Carolina's was from that standpoint. And I understand how East Carolina fans, because of the proud tradition, get frustrated by where the program is now, and there's a lot of yearning for the Ruffin McNeil days, and I totally understand that. But if there's any solace, it's the fact that you have two teams facing each other this Saturday who are almost in the same exact position as a program 1 year ago, and it just shows you the inner workings of the East Carolina program, and what had been at least stockpiled there significantly exceeded what FAU had. And so it's a little bit trickier of a retool, if you will. There's no such thing as a rebuild anymore in college football, I don't think, with roster shuffling and NIL, but a little bit different approach to a retool. So I look at these two teams, and East Carolina is so impressive. And Zach Kittley absolutely love what they do with the offense, loves the quarterback. He's a quarterback guy through and through. So he's going to look at this East Carolina team, and he absolutely loves the quarterback. But let's be honest, East Carolina has become one of the most consistent teams in an ultra-competitive American conference, in the best group of 5 college football league in the entire sport. And that says something. And so Florida Atlantic knows that as tough as UConn was last week, now a 9-win team who's about to lose their head coach, it appears, this is just as, if not a tougher test, because there are dynamics with this East Carolina team that UConn does not possess.
Let's dive into this offensive personnel. You mentioned quarterbacks, Caden Veltkamp. I'm very familiar with him from his days at Western Kentucky. Many Pirate fans may not be, depending on how closely they follow things, but 6'6", 235 or 240 pounds. He's thrown for a ton of yards this year, 24 touchdowns, has thrown 15 picks. I think throwing it about 45 times per game. Tell us what you can about the Western Kentucky transfer.
Yeah, last year, Conference USA Offensive Player of the Year. He had been recruited previously by Zach Kittley to Western Kentucky, a Bowling Green, Kentucky product. And Zach Kittley helped get him to Bowling Green, but then immediately took the offensive coordinator job at Texas Tech, so wasn't able to actually coach him. But Kittley is close with not only Veltkamp, but also Caden Veltkamp's father, who's the strength and conditioning coach at Western Kentucky as well. And so when the opportunity arose where Caden Veltkamp made the decision he was going to go into the portal, and Zach Kittley knew that he was going to become the head coach at Florida Atlantic, it was a really easy first contact once it became legal to say, hey, why don't you check this out? And it just so happens Western Kentucky played in the Boca Raton Bowl last year. So Caden Veltkamp got off the field from the Boca Raton Bowl and then immediately walked into his official visit at Florida Atlantic. So things sort of easily came together. Him and Easton Messer, who we'll get to, were a package deal for the most part. And that's how they ended up at FAU. I mean, Bubba, to your point about his size, you walk around, if you saw Caden Veltkamp on the street, he's wearing an FAU football shirt, you'd say, yeah, that's probably their quarterback. He looks every bit the part of an FBS quarterback. He is big. He is broad. He's got a big arm. Everything is advertised. The interceptions have really hurt. A lot of them have come at inopportune times. He is the definition of a gunslinger, I would say. He is going to take chances. He is going to try and force things. FAU's been playing from behind an awful lot of the year, where I think that has maybe ballooned the interception total a little bit. And he threw 4 in the first game of the year at Maryland. So that also sort of skews everything a little bit. I don't want to say it's misleading, but I think context needs to be presented about the interceptions. But he throws a really good deep ball. He's got outstanding touch. His arm strength to the sidelines is really, really strong. And he's been putting on a full display the last 3 to 4 weeks. It has started to become more and more consistent, and it helps that he has a stable of receivers that I think are the best in the history of the program in that room that he's thrown to, but I also think he's making them better as well. But he is a star, and if FAU can keep him going into next year, there's certainly going to be talk about him being the preseason offensive player of the year without question.
And one of the things, just to double tap on what you just said, that I agree with. The first part of the year, you look at the first quarter of a season with all the teams in American, and we're watching FAU at tailgates and stuff, and we're going, okay, we played them the last game.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with some of my buddies I tailgate with, and I said, look, that team's going to be really dangerous Thanksgiving weekend. And they don't really understand the air raid and all this stuff. Well, one of the things as I was looking at the schedule and what's happened over the last 4 games, this is a big time tough out for ECU. We've got to play our A game to come away from Boca and get on that flight from, I guess they'll probably fly out of Lauderdale back home with the W. At no point do I believe we're just going to walk in there and win, because what they do offensively, and all it takes is one of those days where he doesn't have any interceptions. Penalties go well. We're not able to get pressure. Then we're playing behind the chains and behind the 8 ball as well, defensively, taking chances.
Yep.
And, things could get out of hand quickly. So we've got to come in with a different mindset than we did last week in San Antonio.
First of all, Jason, that's very good geographic knowledge of the international airports in South Florida. So well done with that. They will be flying into Fort Lauderdale. As far as and I'm trying not to sound, I don't want to sound like a propagandist here with FAU football. Now, they do pay me, so I appreciate that, and I'll continue to toe that line. But FAU is close, and I know the record doesn't indicate it, but look at their season the last month. Look at their schedule. Florida Atlantic, for the first time in program history, after October 15th, played 3 teams that were either tied for the American lead or had the outright American lead. 3 teams on the road post October 15th, FAU playing sides that either shared or had the outright league in the conference, whichever one FAU belonged to at that given moment. That's difficult. At USF, at Navy in that span, which obviously is really tricky. And then Tulane, who right now has a foot into the college football playoff. There aren't many teams in the country, or in the conference, I should say, maybe even in the country, that are navigating that type of schedule that Florida Atlantic has entered and now exited the final month of the season. And I mean, it damn near came to a 4th at home with East Carolina, coming in to close out the year with a share of the American Conference lead. So the schedule has not helped. You can't do anything about that. That's for sure. But the reason I bring that up is USF, Florida Atlantic got to within a score in the 3rd quarter, and then things cratered. FAU at Navy, they were within a score nearly halfway through the 4th quarter. Things were a little nervy there for Navy in Annapolis. And then you go to Tulane, and you had Tulane within a score into the 4th quarter. So gradually, FAU has started to find its footing a bit more, and it was offensive droughts that sort of did FAU in. Last week was truly the first time that we saw the full passing offense completely unlocked, and it did whatever it wanted against a UConn team that came close to a double-digit victory season. And hopefully seeing that and experiencing that, like you were talking about, Jason, this team's going to be good once they start to understand the air raid. I think what happened last week, that was the first full understanding of, whoa, this is what it can be, and this is how we utilize all the weapons, because FAU went down 24-3 in the 1st quarter, and it clearly should have won that football game.
Yeah.
Agreed. Speaking of those weapons, you mentioned Messer earlier. Messer, 94 receptions for nearly 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. Platt, 44 for nearly 705 touchdowns. Wasim, 62 for almost 705 touchdowns. And you termed it potentially the best receiving core in school history. Tell us about each one of those guys and then any others that factor in.
Yeah, so Easton Messer leads the nation in receptions per game right now, and he's been flirting. Him and Skylar Bell from UConn have sort of been seesawing with 1 and 2 for the last several weeks, and they faced off against one another last weekend in Boca, which was fun. Easton Messer came out on the top of that by 3 receptions, by the way. So he is prototypical possession receiver, and I mean, you hear Julian Edelman all the time in our parts when looking for a comparison for Easton Messer. Their game is similar enough. Their physical features, I think, that's where the comparison most comes in between Easton Messer and Julian Edelman. But he's got pillow soft hands. He is broad-shouldered. He'll break tackles. He's tough. And he's got speed that I don't think at first glance you necessarily see because he has different gears to it. There's a reason that he's put up really strong punt return numbers and has been in the top 20 in all-purpose yards in the country for pretty much a quarter of the way through the season to now. He's quick. And he's best friends with Caden Veltkamp. They came to FAU together for a reason. They've been roommates for a long time. There's just a connection there for whatever that's worth. They understand the timing. They understand the routes. He understands the weight of the ball when it comes into his hands or into his chest. It's just been a really dynamic duo. And this is a guy in Easton Messer who last year at Western Kentucky, it was the first true season he got a chance as a receiver. And he started to come on late in the year, and Zach Kittley identified, I think there's a lot there that can help in the air raid offense. And now he's been completely unlocked. This is the pristine form of Easton Messer. Then there's Jaysean Platt, who I would argue is the best overall receiver at FAU. He'll hit you over the top. He'll run in routes. He'll fight you off the ball. He's extremely dependable. And I think that his story is interesting because last year, after week 3, he told Tom Herman, I don't feel ready. I'm not getting enough reps, but my body's not there. And I'm not getting reps because I'm not where I need to be as a receiver. I'm going to redshirt. These days you hear that, and that's just, it feels like that's leading into, I'm transferring. I'll see you in the portal. But that didn't happen, even with the coaching change. And it paid off for Platt. He bet on himself to sit out the final 10 weeks of last year. And he came back, and he's been sensational. And so he's been a huge weapon. Asad Wasim, Colorado transfer. He's been phenomenal. I think he has the best hands of anybody on this FAU football team. He's the biggest, most prodigious deep threat for Florida Atlantic. And then there's Dom Henry, who's sort of been on the periphery, but he had the 90-yard touchdown catch on the 4th and 1 from the 10 last weekend. He is the bigger, bulkier type of wide receiver. Then there's a true freshman, Brendan Hoke, as well, who started to come on as of late. So no shortage of weapons at all, and I think you're going to see the full complement against East Carolina.
That's awesome. As I was looking doing my research for our chat today, I was noticing the distribution of the football and the ability for high volume of catches. I've unfortunately got to adult in a minute and drop for a work meeting. But before I do go, I'm just curious, what type of environment or juice do you think ECU fans should expect in the game this Saturday at noon down there in Boca?
I don't mean to disrespect the FAU fan base, but it might be one of those bring your own energy, bring your own juice type of games down there. And unfortunately at FAU, we've grown accustomed to that over the years, being out of bowl eligibility once the final game of the season comes. So I don't know. One thing I can assure you is East Carolina fans that make the trip, and they always travel well, it's going to be great weather. They're going to be able to get some sun on that pale skin, and they're going to be able to enjoy themselves the couple of days they're in. I don't know from a crowd standpoint. It was the way FAU lost against UConn. While it was encouraging, it was also a huge gut punch. It was very deflating, and it's going to be difficult to say, come on, round up the troops. Let's do one more after a loss like that. And there's also Inter Miami soccer plays in an Eastern Conference final on Saturday, and there's a lot of hype about that down here. So I just don't know. I do not know, but I do think East Carolina fans that come, they're going to it'll be worth price of admission. This is going to be an awful lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I actually spent almost 4 months living in Delray Beach, so I know that
that's not bad.
No, it was a good time. It was a hard trip back to Charlotte when I was driving back from that staycation, I should say. But hey, I've got to drop, Ken. Thank you for your insights, and hopefully we have a great competitive game this Saturday. And it sounds like both of our programs have the same type of momentum building, and so it's exciting to watch you guys moving forward. And me, like Bubba, and probably a lot of our ECU fans, we actually pull for the other AAC or American Conference teams because it helps the strength of us and helps us all raise the level of our game, but then gives us a chance to get into a college football playoff one day. So thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And thanks, Bubba, for having me on.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. Take care.
So continuing on, Ken, with the offensive side of the ball, before we shift over and take a look at this Owls defense, one of the things that I'm really keeping an eye on, because ECU's pass defense has really been eaten up at times this year, but how has that FAU offensive line protected Caden Veltkamp?
It has been a struggle. Going back to the interceptions, and Bubba, I promise you I'm not trying to make excuses for Caden Veltkamp. He doesn't need my excuses because his numbers are still prodigious. But the offensive line has maybe been the weakest part of this entire offensive approach in 2025. And all you have to do is look at the rushing numbers to reinforce that, but also the fact that while it hasn't necessarily shown up all the time in the sacks category, there have been a lot of pressures on Caden Veltkamp and a lot of early throws timing off because of that. This offensive line was sort of pieced together. Zach Kittley took over last year at FAU, and within hours, the portal opened. So there was no opportunity to get any sort of runway into the portal, right? And there's no footing. There's no momentum. There's no brand name yet. There's no recognition of FAU and Zach Kittley in the portal. So it really was hit the ground running, like literally parachute out a plane and without a parachute, try and start running once you hit the pavement. So Jacavian Nonar, the left tackle, he was a tight end last year. Converted to left. That's your left tackle. And so that gives you an indication of the rest of the line. So starting at left guard, at least for the last month, has been Mauricio Hines. He's a natural hockey player who moved from Canada to learn how to play the sport of American football. All right. Vinny Fiacable at center, who's been the most consistent offensive lineman this year. He played 8 total snaps in his college career at Indiana before coming to Boca Raton. Alex Atkavage is the captain of the line. He actually did play right guard last year. He returned. And then Scarlett Jean, who's now playing left tackle, he's kicked over to our right tackle from left guard. Scarlett Jean is a 6th-year player who was at Kaiser University, an NAIA school in West Palm Beach before coming to FAU last year. Got hurt the final scrimmage of the fall last season, missed the first 5 weeks of the year. And he's been solid. And this year, there's a reason that they had the confidence to move him from left guard to right tackle, because he probably is the most even of the offensive linemen. But that's 3 of your 5 offensive linemen, Bubba, that don't have any experience or aren't even in their primary position or even in their primary sport based on how they were raised. So that right there is what Zach Kittley's been working with all year, protecting Caden Veltkamp.
So there you have it, Pirate Nation. Some excellent light shed there, and that's a matchup that, and with the East Carolina defensive line, hasn't been the best at rushing the passer, but you have a guy, Zion Wilson, and then that has generated 5 sacks, and some others that are capable of making some things happen. That's really an area to watch going into this one. Shifting over and taking a look at the defense, tell us what you can about the Owls on that side.
Yeah, the pass rush hasn't necessarily been where Florida Atlantic has needed it to be this year, but there are some very capable D linemen. Let's just start up front. CJ Doggett, who's a transfer from Ohio, he's come on, and he's probably been the most disruptive defensive lineman for Florida Atlantic, and him alongside Najon Barber up front. It's been a pretty formidable duo. Bryce Langston, who's an LSU transfer, who has played most of the season at tackle, they swung him out to the edge against UConn, and while he didn't come up with a sack, he was in the backfield a decent amount. So I would suspect that Bryce Langston, number 7, you're probably going to see him at the right defensive end once again, at least for a spell against East Carolina. And then there is a freshman, Josh Roberts, at the other end spot, who has been a revelation this year. And if FAU can keep him, and I would expect he's going to come back for at least one more year next season, that is what FAU is going to try and build around. Him and Doggett, I would suspect, if both remain on the roster next season. So those are sort of and Gavin Marcelin as well, a defensive end. He also will go back in coverage if they need him. He's a freak. He's 240, but he's extremely quick. So they've had him rushing the passer, but also going and defending pass catchers out of the backfield. So he's number 11. You'll see him an awful lot too on Saturday. Then there's the linebacking group, and there's 2 really primarily to focus on: Tyler Stolsky, the captain, Minnesota transfer, and Leon Hart, who has been the leading tackler for FAU throughout the course of the season. They're fast, they're rangy. Leon Hart's the better athlete. Stolsky is truly the epitome of the quarterback of that side of the ball for FAU. That's 44 and 6 respectively. Then the secondary has been feast or famine. FAU didn't get its first interception of the year until 2 weeks ago when they played Tulsa at home. That's week 11 of the entire college football season. FAU did not get its first interception until we hit the month of November. I've never seen anything like that before. Finally, FAU was able to register it, and actually 2 interceptions against Tulsa that game, so able to break through. There's speed, there's athleticism, but there have been times where FAU has fallen victim to poor tackling from the corner spot as well. But Therese Reed, Duda Rogers, those are 2 primary corners. Zion Perrette, who's a true freshman. You're going to see Jaden Williams and Chris Keys as your 2 primary safeties for Florida Atlantic as well. Chris Tooley at nickel along with Wendell Fallord. Tooley, in fact, had a ball hit his hands inside the 10 on what would turn into UConn's game-winning drive late in the 4th quarter. Nearly picked it off. That would have ended the game. That's been the story of FAU this year. Opportunities, especially in the secondary, to turn the ball over, but haven't been able to come through, and that's a reason why FAU has the worst turnover margin in the country, because, a lot of interceptions, but also the defense has not been able to take the ball away. And so that's sort of the layman's overview of the FAU defense.
And shifting over to the special teams, East Carolina has kind of been a mixed bag. You've had an excellent place kicker, and then the punting game has left something to be desired, so much so that you've had do everything Mike Wright, a quarterback by trade, but then also wide receiver. He's lined up in the backfield at times, also in the secondary. He's rugby punted, I think, at least 3 or 4 times now. And I'm sure that's something you've come across in your notes in preparation for this game. But what can you tell us about the FAU special teams?
Yeah, we're very familiar with the rugby punt in the Lane Kiffin era. He did not bring in any punter. Like, I'm pretty sure he was checking passports. Are you from Australia? All right, you're on the team. We're very familiar with the rugby punting at Florida Atlantic. Now, no Australian this time around. Let's just start, since we're talking about punters, with Logan Lupo. He has been fantastic for Florida Atlantic this year. He has flipped the field when asked. Again, he hasn't been leaned on a ton, but he has gotten FAU onto some really tight field position situations this season. He's been a special teams revelation, and he's going to be a cornerstone of what FAU is trying to do on special teams next year. He was brought in as a holder week 3 after some issues in the field goal execution component, and he's been lights out. That's something that you don't know you really need it until it starts becoming a problem, and Logan Lupo really was able to even that out from a holder standpoint. If we were talking 2 weeks ago, Bubba, I would tell you Garrison Smith is the best place kicker FAU has had since Greg Joseph, the NFL place kicker who was Lane Kiffin's right foot during his entire tenure. 2 conference championships at Florida Atlantic. And then, by Garrison Smith's standards, chip shot field goal to force overtime against UConn, 36 yards after FAU was able to cover 68 yards in 3 plays with 26 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and a horrendous shank from 36 yards out. And FAU ends up losing because of that. I don't know what headspace or what mindset Garrison Smith is going to be in off of that. Against UConn, he had a 49-yarder in the first quarter, and then he shanks a 36-yarder by about 30 yards to tie the game. So I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like on Saturday. And then FAU is elite in the return game. Kick returner Jay Sean Platt, punt returner Easton Messer. They're elite, but also in the last month or so, they haven't really touched the football at all. It's all touchbacks. It's all punting away from Messer. And it's hard to gauge what the return game is going to be for Florida Atlantic here on Saturday, because FAU quite simply they've had less than a handful of returns combined, punt return and kickoff return over the last month, because nobody's kicking to them. But that's sort of a look at the special teams. FAU earlier in the year had back-to-back games with a punt block for a touchdown, which had never happened in program history. So it's been steady. It's been very steady from a special team standpoint.
Really appreciate the insight. A couple more things for you as we wrap up the conversation. One, I think this may have been off air before we went live, and that is this is obviously Thanksgiving weekend. You have 2 teams. Yes, the Pirates are going to be playing a bowl game, but they're eliminated from the conference title race. FAU, on the other hand, they have been eliminated from bowl contention with that loss to UConn. But it's year 1 of an era, and from what I gather, I don't think there's going to be any quit. I mean, I guess you can never say never in this day and age of college football in particular, as far as who's going to leave it all out there on the field. But I would think in year 1 of Zach Kittley that this is a team that's still going to play extremely hard this weekend, and East Carolina is definitely going to have to bring it, coming off a very, very emotional loss, getting blown out down at the Alamo Dome, as so many have.
Yeah, I think it's momentum needed for both teams from different perspectives, right? East Carolina wants to put itself back in a confident mindset going into a bowl game, and FAU, there's going to be individual motivation. Yes, team, but individual motivation too, because other than Easton Messer, I think, and I'm not ignorant to the fact that Easton Messer is, in all likelihood, Bubba, going to see offers come his way probably in the 7-figure range, right? Like, he's the top receiver receptions-wise in the country. I'm not naive to it. Easton Messer could sit Saturday, and he's in a great spot. He'll be desired by FAU, and he'll still receive offers from power conference teams. He's not going to do that because he wants to play and he's committed, and he's not like that. But for FAU, you have, other than Easton Messer, players up and down the roster. They're in no position not to play hard and not to put something on film. Forget the portal for a moment. Forget the money. They need to continue to show Zach Kittley that if they have designs of coming back to Boca next year, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where it's going to be very competitive to fight for reps going into next season, you would think that they are leaving a very good impression on Zach Kittley. And then on the defensive side of the ball, which FAU is going to do some significant retooling here in this offseason, do you belong? Do you have a spot? This is a prime opportunity for you to show, I should enter spring at the top of a depth chart. So there's going to be internal motivation for these guys. Zach Kittley also, I've been around FAU teams that once it looks like the season's starting to go south, you can tell there's a checkout that has permeated the locker room and the building and the roster. that hasn't happened here, as evidenced by the fact that FAU made Tulane nervous. FAU made Navy nervous. FAU had UConn on the ropes. This team battles, it fights. Zach Kittley's very easy to play for, and this is not going to be a mail it in. I'd be shocked if this was a mail it in for FAU. East Carolina is certainly going to have its hands full, and I stand by. This is going to be much more entertaining, much more competitive than it was last year up by you guys.
It's like Jason and I were discussing on our UTSA recap show earlier this morning, and that is that in 17 games under Blake Harrell, that's the first time that the Pirates have not been competitive in a game as it went downhill immediately in San Antonio. Now you're faced not only bouncing back, but bouncing back on the road on Thanksgiving weekend. Very intrigued to see how East Carolina does and if they're able to do just that. We'll close with this. Obviously, Boca Raton is well known for a variety of reasons. It's such a beautiful area and destination spot as far as not only living but vacationing. What can you tell Pirate fans about some things to take advantage of in addition to the beach? Maybe a place to eat or two and anything of that nature.
Yeah, so the great thing about Boca, because it's in a heavily urban area, you don't have to just stay isolated to Boca Raton. And sure, in Boca, there's Meisner Park. I think that if you're looking for good restaurants, good shopping, the full Boca feel, Meisner Park, which is about 1.5 miles south of FAU's campus off US 1 Federal Highway, absolutely stop there. Go there. You can bounce in and out of places. It's truly not a college feel. It's not like you're going to be able to, in Boca, just jump bar to bar to bar and do that whole thing. There's no main school, university drag there in Boca Raton. But Meisner Park is definitely, if you're looking for some South Florida chic, some peak Boca, that's where you want to go. Now, if you're of the younger sort, what I would say, and I'm glad Jason mentioned Delray, just go about 10 minutes north to Atlantic Avenue in Delray. A little bit of a younger crowd, more of the opportunity to just do some bar hopping up there. I would definitely hit up Delray Beach. I think it's maybe a little more age appropriate for the college crowd or maybe the adult crowd looking to relive some college glory. I would definitely hit up Delray. So Meisner Park in Boca, just a collection of outstanding restaurants, upscale, great boutiques, the entire thing. And then if you're looking, I would say Friday night, do Delray, do Atlantic Avenue. You can't go wrong there. And then Saturday after the game, I would hit up Meisner Park in Boca Raton. And again, all of that is within 10 to 15 minutes of each other. You can Uber it, you can rental car it, but it's really easy access the entire way. So that would be my educated recommendation for East Carolina fans that are coming for this FAU East Carolina game.
Pirate Nation, that is FAU play-by-play voice, Ken LaVicka. I appreciate 40 minutes of your time, Ken. Tell folks how they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, on Twitter at KLV Says, Instagram at Ken LaVicka, and just follow me throughout the course leading into the weekend. Make sure that if there's anything that is brought up from an accessibility standpoint to the stadium or to know about the game, have it for you. Keep checking in, and looking forward to having East Carolina fans down as always. It's always fun to be able to converse with one of the true great fan bases, not only in the American but in the entire group of 5 in college football. So really looking forward to this one on Saturday, and appreciate you, Bubba, having me on again.
No doubt. Appreciate the kind words. All the best to you and yours on this Thanksgiving weekend, and as well as you, Pirate Nation. But that will do it for this episode of the show, our FAU preview, But we'll talk to you on the FAU recap show. And until then, as always, go Pirates.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.